Hello everyone. Welcome to the next in the series of Biology 301 Public Exam Review clips. This clip will take a look at the second system which assists the body in maintaining homeostasis, that being the endocrine system. The endocrine system is comprised of the hormone-producing glands and tissues of the body. It operates primarily as a chemical means of controlling homeostasis. In essence, the endocrine system functions to assist in maintaining homeostasis, and it works in concert with the nervous system to do that tasks. The endocrine system certainly functions significantly slower than the endocrine system of the nervous system, but it does give a more sustained effect. And the endocrine system is tied to the nervous system, and one of these ties is through the hypothalamus. In fact, the endocrine system carries its functions based on messages received from the hypothalamus. Certainly the hypothalamus is a part of the central nervous system, specifically, as you can recall, the brain. The hypothalamus monitors the blood and sends hormones from glands into the blood when it is needed. Organs await the arrival of these hormones, and specific hormones will attach to specific receptors in the cells. Only those cells which possess the receptors for that hormone will react, and these organs that contain those receptors are deemed to be called target organs. The endocrine system also controls, among other things, blood sugar metabolism, growth, reproductive development and function, as well as a host of other physiological activities. The endocrine system, as previously mentioned, is comprised of a number of glands and tissues. You can see a number of them listed in the diagram in front of you. We have the pituitary gland, located at the base of the brain, often called the master gland. There's the pineal gland, cone-shaped gland, located, as you see here, the base of the brain here. We have the hypothalamus, which feeds into and helps monitor and control the endocrine system. The thyroid and parathyroid glands, located at the base of the neck. There's the thymus gland, contained mid-chest. There are the adrenal glands, which are located on top of the kidneys. The pancreas contain endocrine tissue. Specifically, the pancreas are very important in maintaining and controlling blood sugar levels. And we have the testicles in males and ovaries in females. These produce hormones as well, which certainly exhibit significant effect as it pertains to the functioning of the reproductive system. Glands fit into one of two broad types. The first of these is endocrine, the second exocrine. Endocrine glands do not have ducts. They dump their hormones directly into the bloodstream for transport to target cells. Exocrine glands, on the other hand, they have ducts. Hormones are secreted into ducts, for example, sweat glands and the salivary glands. As mentioned previously, hormones are chemicals that circulate throughout the blood and exert some measure of control over most every organ and tissue in the body. Hormones fit into one of two broad categories. They are either considered to be steroidal or non-steroidal. Each of these functions in slightly different ways. Steroid hormones are hormones that are manufactured from a fatty substance called cholesterol. These steroid hormones, because they are certainly fat-soluble, has an impact on how they actually function and exert their effect in the cell. Cortisol is one example of a steroid hormone. How steroid hormones work is these hormones enter a cell and they bind to a protein receptor in the cell. This creates a hormone receptor complex. Once this hormone receptor complex is activated, it will then enter the nucleus of the cell, where it activates a specific gene in the DNA. This activated gene then produces an enzyme that initiates a chemical reaction within the cell. To try and diagram this, if we take a cell as being this circle here, with its corresponding nucleus, which I'll draw in red. The hormone, which I'll call H, enters the cell and passes through the cell membrane because it is indeed fat soluble. Once it enters the cell, it binds to a protein to form a hormone receptor complex, which I'll entitle HC. This hormone receptor complex enters the nucleus cell of the cell, where it causes a gene to activate, which I'll entitle G. This gene then guides the production of enzymes, called E, which cause functioning in the cell to change and adapt based on the purpose of that specific hormone. Steroidal hormones are able to enter the cell and guide the cell to produce enzymes which exhibit their effects in the cell itself. Non-steroid hormones, on the other hand, these are hormones that are comprised of proteins, peptides, or amino acids. Unlike the steroid hormones, these hormones are not fat soluble. They are unable to enter cells because they are not soluble in the cell membrane. Remember, the cell membrane is a phospholipid bilayer. A fat soluble hormone, such as a steroid one, would be able to cross the membrane. A non-steroid hormone, on the other hand, cannot. Non-steroid hormones work by initially binding to receptors on the surface of the target cell. This binding triggers a cascade of reactions which begins with ATP to be changed into cyclic AMP. The cyclic AMP acts as messenger, causes the cascade of reaction to continue, which then occurs within the cell. Examples: adrenaline, adrenocorticotropic hormone, luteinizing hormone, follicle stimulant hormone, antidiuretic hormone, all operate in this manner. And again, to try and illustrate this for you, if we take the cell, as we see here, the hormone in this case, a non-steroid hormone, cannot cross the cell membrane, but what it does is it binds to a receptor which I'll draw here in blue. This receptor has the hormone, which I'll draw in red, fit into it like a lock and key. Once this happens, changes happen inside of the cell. ATP forms cyclic AMP, which then sets off a cascade of reactions, activating products along the way, which eventually leads to the activation of enzymes that are already present. At no time, however, does the hormone cross into the cell. Non-steroid hormones function by activating products that are already there. So in summary, to compare steroid versus non-steroid hormones, steroid hormones are soluble in the cell membrane, they can cross. Non-steroid hormones, on the other hand, are insoluble, they cannot cross the cell membrane. Steroidal hormones have as their receptors within the cell itself. Non-steroid hormones operate on the surface of the cell. The end result with a steroid hormone is that the gene produces a protein, whereas with a non-steroid hormone, cyclic AMP causes a cascade of reaction to occur within the cell. Hormones can also be grouped in other ways as well. One of the groupings is antagonistic hormones. They operate against each other. They have opposite effects on the body tissues. For example, insulin and glucagon. They both operate in opposite directions. Insulin and glucagon do different things with blood sugar. Insulin brings blood sugar down, whereas glucagon brings it up. Parathyroid hormone and calcitonin have similar effects as it pertains to calcium balance. Tropic hormones are hormones that regulate the hormone production of many other glands. They control and regulate other glands. For example, thyroid stimulating hormone and human growth hormone. To provide some closure to this section, I want to look over now a few sample questions from previous public exams. The first of these, what is the target organ for the hormone insulin? You should be familiar with a number of them and what they work on. The target organ for the hormone insulin. This would be the liver. It causes more blood sugar to go into storage. The second question in the sequence, which type of hormones penetrate target cells, again, entering the target cells to produce proteins? If a cell is going to cross into the cell, it must be fat-soluble. The only fat-soluble hormones that are there are the steroid hormones. This question asks a question directly about which is directly involved in the action of most non-steroid based hormones. It is not crossing the membrane. It is not prostaglandins. Testosterone is a hormone itself, but with non-steroid hormones, it sets off an enzyme cascade, a second messenger. And this question, which hormones have antagonistic effects? Antagonists meaning working against each other. The answer to this question would be insulin and glucagon. Thank you very much for your time.